Wow, you guys listen.
Yeah.
We're very obedient.
For a small town, we listen.
Yes.
Nothing else to do.
Yeah, we need it.
Yes.
Everybody's like, oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's amazing.
Front row center for you.
Tell
Tell us what to do.
So we get as much light in here as possible. All right, good morning and thank you so much. We were thinking we may get here and Catherine and Brian make it from La Junta and it'll just be the four of us eating a lot of food. So it's so rewarding that you were able to get here. It's this first snow of the year, we all know it just kind of flips us out and flips cars and all of that. Well, Brian here, they're going to be formally introduced once I get through talking. But Brian Corrigan is our guest speaker today, and Catherine Correll is getting coffee in the back. But those will be the two people you don't recognize because the rest of us are Trinidadians and we know everything about each other. Okay, now,
I think she has a presentation first.
Yeah, but do you have a photo?
can I click my own slides?
Yeah, I'm going to just hit that.
All right. My name is Harriet Bourgeois. I did that. Today is the culminating activity of a year-long association between SCRT and DCI, Downtown Colorado Inc. And it's also a springboard for an ongoing relationship between DCI and Trinidad at large. How all this has happened will be explained by Catherine. My job is to provide a bit of background for you. SCRT was put through DCI's Intensive Challenge Studio, a process which led to, and here will come a list. Number one, a deep and critical analysis of SCRT's 17-year history. The good, the bad, and the... Well, that's rude. All right. And am I hitting the go button?
That.
The one to the right?
So, yeah, this one goes forward. That one goes back.
Okay. Here we are in Aspen in the highlight of the Challenge Studio process. And this deep critical analysis of SCRT after doing the critical analysis, good, bad, and we then realized that despite surviving local and national boom and bust periods, we had to determine why SCRT has not reached the gold standard, self-sufficiency and sustainability. Now, we understand with small businesses, you're supposed to start seeing a profit in 5 years or pack it up and find a different location. But SCRT has been around for 17 years and none of us could explain why we haven't been able to reach that gold standard. So once we accomplish number one and number two, the analysis and the big why, because we did answer that, Next came strategies for meeting our core challenge. And finally, our payback for this opportunity is sharing what we've learned with the rest of Trinidad. Voila! Here are our discoveries. Number one, SCRT's challenge is the same as everyone else's in this small, remote, rural community with a high poverty rate, crumbling infrastructure and empty buildings, among other critical areas that are overdue for rebirth. Discovery number two, igniting economic growth is not easy. For years in Trinidad, our economic development organization has changed leadership and location and even its name many times. The loudest hue and cry has always been, we have to bring big industry with lots of jobs to Trinidad. We have to get the coal mine open again and natural gas drilling back to full production. Discovery number three. In reality, we already have two industries that we can control and count on. These two industries can provide what we need: economic growth and enhanced quality of life. They are the nature around us and that we own in many cases, and our creative entrepreneurs, some of whom are in the audience today. Investing in the creative industry is a critical piece of Trinidad's future. Of course, I'm biased, but get over it. That and our natural beauty won't go away unless there's some apocalypse and we're all gone. We know too well the negative long-range impact of boom and bust industries, the spending sprees that occur when the money is flowing, so often without thinking about maybe investing in an unknown future. But it's so debilitating to be without, and so much fun to gorge and splurge when we're in the money. Trinidad is especially fortunate that our creative industry growth coincided with a governor who pursued a different path from other states when they were clawing out of our most recent Great Recession. He chose not to join the competition between states to woo industry in with monetary incentives, only to lose those industries to the next state's better offers. Governor Hickenlooper invested in the Colorado creative sector.
Maybe point over here.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Research suggests that our creative industry will see much greater returns on investments if we are a collaborative industry rather than separate entities. There is a lot of data nationally about the positive impact of the creative sector on communities in need. Trinidad's creative sector today, and this is my assessment, we all live in our own bubbles, doing all we can to stay alive. As a community, we have boards and committees and networks, and we hire consultants, and we talk to each other about ways to grow our economy and improve the quality of life in Trinidad. We discuss and make plans, but then the immediate needs of our individual survivals take over again. We have a problem turning talk into action. Today may be another chapter in the same story, or perhaps today is the opportunity we have to move that damn Sisyphus boulder further up the mountain. I certainly don't know, but I truly believe that the mission is worth going for it again. SCRT's challenge in 2019 has been to turn a mostly volunteer, nonprofit theater company into a professionally run, sustainable business. SCRT had to take stock of its assets, and as the current volunteer executive director and also the DCI Challenge local team leader, I have been tasked with promoting a citywide effort to leverage what we already have working for us. And as I go through SCRT asset list, replace SCRT with your organization, your nonprofit, your business, your dream, and see how much of our assets also relates to you. SCRT is much more than the plays we produce. You know what? It's okay that not everybody likes plays. It's important that we understand why SCRT is a critical component of the Trinidad creative economy, besides producing live theater. What is our origin story? Why were we birthed here in the first place? And I ask that, turn that back to you. What brought you here? What got you involved? What's your passion? We can't forget our origin stories because we have to use those to promote and increase investment. To increase the support that we already receive, we have to acknowledge and promote the economic and quality of life benefits that we pour into the community. The Challenge program slammed SCRT in the face with the critical need to pursue collaborations while trying to grow our personal bottom line. We must seek out and expand our efforts to collaborate with others. A little backstory. SCRT was originally a collaboration with the college, and we were partners from 2002 to 2011. During that period, the college theater and music programs grew to full production, recruiting students from across Colorado and northern New Mexico, providing 2-year full-ride scholarships for AA degrees with an emphasis in music or theater. SCRT staff taught college classes. SCR trained and hired college students as interns with the professional company. Then, SCRT felt that they needed to move to Main Street because at that time, Trinidad was trying to be designated as a creative district. And we were too far from the creative district to provide that check mark that was needed. So we moved to this location. Trinidad got designated a creative district, not just because of our move, but a lot because of that. And then that led into Space to Create. Now, moving to Main Street, the college and the college theater and music programs were cut way back. There were no more performing arts AA degree programs. Our move to Main Street to bolster the application for creative district, I already said that. But the collaboration between TSJC and SCRT hurt both of us when we lost that relationship. Because now SCRT had to focus on building our theater company so that we could afford to be in this building and afford to have our own housing for our actors and afford to have a scene shop. So we grew and became a year-round application on Main Street. But that wasn't good. That's like taking a resource that was working so well and squeezing that to try to do something else. Well, I'm very happy to say that in 2020, TSJC and SCRT are reestablishing their close collaboration and growing both programs. And that's what we've learned about collaboration. Now, through the challenge process, we learned the critical value of gathering organization data. Our city does not have a person who gathers data about what goes on in our town. It's very hit and miss. And we, as a creative sector, have so many categories of data that we need to know and throw out there. So, SCRT's specific data, and again, think about your organization and business and ask yourself, do we fit that category? Is that data that we have or that we should be recording so that we can just open the file and pull that out? Number one, we had to provide evidence for why we have survived this long and grown our programming every year despite a vastly fluctuating economy. Now, I have to tell you a quick story. When Marilyn Leusler and I were promoting the Creative District concept, we had little stickers, and we walked up and down Main and Commercial Street to every business and asked if they would put this sticker on their window that says, a proud creative business, or a proud creative enterprise. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But so many of the old timers said, I don't know what you're talking about. We're not a creative business. I'm just a barber shop. I'm not a creative business. I sell insurance. And I had to keep saying, but how is it that your family has been doing this for over 100 years? Tell me the secret, because that's creative. And the one person that I talked to was Fran Monteleone at Nana and Nano's. And I asked her, tell me why I think you are a creative business. And she looked at me and she said, because I'm still here. Well, we took that definition and sent it up to the state that was handling creative districts. And we said, this is our definition of what it means to be a creative business. You know how to survive. You know how to change your business model. You know how to change the way you communicate with the public. Whatever it is, you know how to repaint your building to stay alive. All right, next category was our diverse programming that provides opportunities for a wide range of interests, age groups, expendable incomes, and individual needs. The economic ripple effect, or added value dollars for the local economy. A study, we had a study done in 2009 that indicated that when we were still partnering at the college and only producing plays 3 months in the summer, we still put $1 million every year into Trinidad's economy. Last year, we used a different survey, it's a calculator out of Americans for the Arts, and that showed, with our expanded program and being downtown, that last year we pumped $1,700,000 into the local economy. Now, you know, that's ripple effect. That's not from ticket sales or fees that we charge kids who are in our programs. That's people who come here because of SCRT and eat and go to the gas station and stay in a hotel and buy trinkets, and you get it. And also the company that we bring in every summer. Almost all of their salary goes right back into Trinidad. They buy everything, you know, all the t-shirts, all of this, all of that. They eat in restaurants all the time. So that's the ripple effect. Evidence of community pride. If you're still alive, you know that this community values you. But how do you prove that? And for me, as I would sit in the office in this old building without insulation, I can hear everything everybody says as they pause out in front. And so often I will see somebody who lives here taking a visitor through town and saying, and this is our theater. You have your own theater here? Yeah, it's really great. Well, I haven't seen a show yet, but I plan to. And so many other times when asked, is it time for SCRT to say, we've done our job, our time is over. And I hear constantly, oh my God, we can't lose our theater. So finding out why. Why do you say that? Another data is evidence of social benefits. Like everything that is a collective activity, whether it's a church or a club or a theater or sitting watching kids around the water in Chimino Park, that ends up being a social benefit when people interact. And in Catherine and Brian's material that they sent out, I love this statistic, and I hope you saw it. 74% of Americans prioritize experiences over products and things. Well, if you come to an SCRT play, you will enjoy it better than your new car. No. Anyway, we'll see. I'm going to move on because I'm taking too much time. Whoops. I don't know where that came from. Yes, I did. Sorry. Personal benefits. You know, for SCRT, we provide training and employment, and we have a large pool of volunteers. And there's so much personal growth that occurs when people have those new opportunities, whether it's somebody on stage or off stage. There's personal growth that is provided, and we don't think about that, and we don't quantify it. Moving on, data. We have to be telling our stories, either our origin stories or through our products and through our environment. It's our local stories and also our stories as part of the human race. That's something that SCRT spends a lot of time trying to do, providing year-round education and opportunities in a variety of ways. And SCRT is never static. We're always changing our programming to provide a wider choice of topics and also to challenge our audiences and performers and directors and designers with new topics and techniques that sometimes have never been experienced before. That's risk-taking, but we believe in it. What we lack, though, that has prevented us from reaching our most important goal, sustainability, is resources, both money and people. And I suspect that that's at the top of most of your lists as well, whether you're a nonprofit or a business. Wow, if we only had the money and the people, we could do anything. Right? At the college, the Mitchell Museum, our school system, even Artocade. I mean, they're trying to operate that massive museum without charging admission, totally on the backs of volunteers to keep it open. And if you have somebody who is driving from 4 states away because they want to see the Artocade Museum and it's closed because you don't have a volunteer that day, that could kill your business. All right. And finally, despite our program or our product changes, our administrative staff and our business model has not changed in basically 17 years. Neither have our monetary resources. I have discovered that nonprofits spend 95% of their money on products and programming and only 5% on operational staffing, which usually involves fundraising and marketing as well. You see how the balance is off for us to make a difference in our bottom line. And so, that brings us right back to the benefits of collaboration. Collaboration is scary because we're all stretched so thin. What if collaborating with another group means we have to give up something? What if that give up is money? The challenge is to find the formula that allows us all to maintain our unique and special place, and how we can support and enhance others at the same time. How we can share resources and also grow individually. It's time to take control of our industry, my brothers and sisters, and find the collaborations that will provide growth. Be thinking of the ways that you are collaborating right now. Here's a list from the theater side. There are 3 historic theater structures in our region: Fox West in Trinidad, the Schuler in Raton, and the Fox in Walsenburg. All of them were built about the same time, and they all were full of activity and audiences when they were built. The Schuler is now the State Theater of New Mexico. It's owned by the town of Raton, and it was restored and underwritten by 3 family foundations in Raton with funds that are dedicated only to performing arts. The Fox in Trinidad and Walsenburg, until recently, were owned privately and survived barely as movie theaters. Currently, a group of Walsenburg citizens has formed a nonprofit and is trying to raise money to restore it and turn their theater into a conference space with a still small stage for performances and presentations. In Trinidad, the newly monikered Fox West, which combines 2 periods of the building's history, is also owned by our city in collaboration with developer Dana Crawford. And as I believe, with little more than a dream of restoring it to a fully functioning performance, meeting, and gathering space to date. When all of these 3 theaters are operational, they will all benefit by sharing bookings, roadshow bookings, by cross-promoting special deals for patrons. For tourists who might come to Trinidad and they want to see a musical performance, but our theater has a lawyers' convention occurring. So we tell them, go to Raton, where the 3 tenors are on stage. Boy, would that be cool. Okay. Youth theater. Mont Carmel, SCRT, School District Number 1, UC Boulder, Branson, Honey, Primero, and homeschoolers have opportunities and resources collaboratively among those groups. And community theater. SCRT promotes its own Trinidad Community Theater. And SCRT provides resources and training for La Vida Spanish Peaks players in the Francisco Performing Arts Center, which is owned by La Vida. And in the past, we have collaborated with the picket wire players in La Junta, who I discovered yesterday are celebrating 50 years of operation in La Junta. Likewise, our regular audiences, because we try to keep that data, comes from these regional communities who have become theater goers. And they'll drive all over the place to see theater. It's not just, I'm only going to our theater, that whets their appetite. These are collaborations. We have so many unique businesses and things happening in our town. If we find out that there's something in a regional area that might be a good coalition, that's wonderful to be able to cross-promote and work together. Now, embracing the creative sector is all around us. The History Museum hosting music on the lawn. Los Animas Grill and Ike's Music Store produce open mic nights at the grill. Mooses host community Meet the Candidate nights, comedians and musicians. Bricks turns its main restaurant into a cabaret when Elvis and other musical groups hit town. Vivica Atkinson pays for large art sculptures installed on Main Street in front of her store. Liz Torres bucks, critiques, and paints her candy store cotton candy pink, and it becomes a favorite photo for tourists. Am I there? Yeah. Francesca Villani turns her corner former gas station with grease-stained concrete into a shaded patio for gourmet ice cream lovers. Stealthy mural and chalk and needlepoint artist works show up on unsuspecting walls and crannies. Singing waiters show up at our steak restaurant, a funeral parlor with a television studio that broadcasts a kitchen show. What else? I've forgotten so much. Shout out. What's the other cross? Think of
Upswing.
what?
My building.
Yes.
Upswing next to the Fox Theater. I host events, fundraisers for the Trinidad Music Association, other fun get-togethers, like this afternoon.
Melody. Aha. Thank you. Now I also have to give a quick nod to our current local industries, cannabis and evergreen natural resources. They dig deep to support their chosen causes, and we're lucky to have them here. All right, our community is ready for the next step. Today's focus is how to grow our creative industry through adopting better business practices, increasing investment and support systems. I'm going to come back to that. Promoting our collective benefits, and of course, increasing our individual strength through collaboration. Now, in terms of shared increasing investments and support systems, the concept of a Trinidad Cultural Trust has been bandied around quite a bit. And this is where investment portfolios are put together, trying to get investment in the entire creative industry. And there are many more investors who are prevalent who will donate to that type of total industry rather than a check to that gallery and a check to that musical group, and we've done that. And it's usually done by a membership basis. It's the kind of lift all boats way of increasing fundraising. And there are lots of models all over, and I'm not going to go through some that we've tried, except briefly last year, 4 nonprofits teamed up to cross-promote their Colorado Gives Day fundraising. And through sharing resources and getting matching dollars for the whole group, a hospital, a college, Noah's Ark, and a theater, we all raised 500% more money because we worked together than we could have by working individually. Shared grant writer possibility. Colorado Tourism Office has grants to hire people to do all the city's data collection, but they won't do it for an individual group. It's got to be for an entire industry. And so there's a lot, if we had someone writing grants for us collectively, we would get data and money. And also, it would be wonderful if we could find a way to have a guaranteed amount of funding or percentage of our budgets from the city to see that engagement. And there's no question that the city has been supporting the creative industry with Space to Create. That's huge, and now with Fisher Peak. But it's something that I don't think we should be quiet about. I'm not talking about how much money, but so we know that there is a pot that is dedicated for the creative industry, the small businesses and the nonprofits. We're getting toward the end. Everything that we do should be focused on our 2 greatest assets. the economic growth that we provide, and the enhanced quality of life. With all the advice and the research I have learned how unique and impactful is what we have going in our town right now. How far ahead we are in the process of building our local economy and growing the creative economy itself locally. Living within our local bubbles, most of us are unaware of the reputation we've created far beyond Trinidad. Here's where we are, in my estimate, both as nonprofits and small businesses. We have all grown to the point of needing more paid help, but not making enough money to afford those hirings. We have unique and creative programs and goods, but no money to promote beyond our area what we collectively offer that would generate the revenue we need to grow to a sustainable level. We have a desire to collaborate with each other to expand what we can offer, but no time to work on additional projects when we're close to killing ourselves, staying alive. We all know the adage that challenges are opportunities, and man, do we ever have a lot of opportunities. Today, DCI will lead us through a process for creating an event in Trinidad that will have one focus, and that is to celebrate and ignite our existing creative sector. It will be an event that incorporates what we already have going locally, including the opening of Space to Create. It will be an event that will appeal to residents of Trinidad of all ages and be something worthy of promotion through all of the far-reaching tourism outlets. During this morning's activities, we will all have an opportunity to talk about what each of our organizations and businesses is excited about for 2020, and then hopefully see how everything we're doing and planning actually intersects everything we're individually planning. We'll find coalitions that we can establish that will fit within the resources we already have and will serve as avenues for new resources. I am proud to introduce my mentor, cheerleader, and our partner with DCI, Catherine Corral, who will finally take over this process.
Wow, that's an act to follow.
My house, my microphone.
Well, thank you, Harriet. That was a wonderful presentation and a wonderful snapshot into all of the pieces of Trinidad that are so important. And a little bit of background, because I see some new faces. I thought I had met most people in Trinidad, but I feel like there's a lot of new faces here today. Downtown Colorado Week has been working with Trinidad since 2012 when we came in kind of on the front end before Main Street and before Creative Industries was really here, and did a downtown plan. So looking at how to get into creative industries, how to get into the Main Street program, how to work with urban renewal. All of those things were a part of a plan that we put together way back when. And I am always so impressed with the progress that you all have made as a community. As Harriet alluded to, we have then worked with you this last year through our Colorado Challenge Accelerator program. And did you take the flipper? Okay. And so the challenge program is something that we put together. It's really only 3 years old. And the idea is exactly what Harriet said, helping communities to take their challenges and turn them into opportunities. And so we have an entire process that we put behind that. So it first works with understanding your challenge. And this is kind of getting at the root cause rather than the symptoms behind the challenges that a community is facing. Then it goes into a team building phase. And as you saw, a lot of our team building, we started last year around this time, bringing together people, putting together a core network of folks who could talk about the challenge and talk about possible solutions. And then taking that to our challenge studio is phase 3, where we have this event that we have at our annual event each year. This year it was in Aspen, and there we have all these different consultants and all these different communities that have similar problems, and people who are interested in diving in and working over the course of 3 days to really look at what you are trying to overcome and what some of the possibilities might be for you. And then on the last day, there's a pitch session where we have a panel of different people from foundations, and you get to really pitch your idea and get feedback from people from foundations or lenders or different groups who can really give you some insight into how that will be received by the rest of the world. And then stage 5 is all of this follow-up. So working, we probably talk at least monthly, but I would say probably usually a couple more times, except for when the whole season was going on. It was hot and heavy over here. But kind of touching base and seeing what's going on, and sending resources and trying to figure out how to move the needle so that at the end of the year there's progress to show. You're building momentum and thinking about what to do. And I have to say, Trinidad has been a very special community, and SCRT has been a very special part of the challenge program because you don't fit the model. I think the thing about this community is you've never fit another model. You are uniquely Trinidad, and SCRT is unique in the way it has survived, and not just survived but thrived, though sometimes it may feel like a struggle. I think that what you offer and the way you compare to other communities is you don't. You're just totally different. You're in a category of your own. And so when we think about your challenge and how Trinidad's challenge and why SCRT was an important part of the challenge program and a part of Trinidad is really thinking about, yes, it started with a sustaining a performing arts theater. And how can a small rural performing arts theater reinvent its business model and operations to become an economic driver? Well, part of that is it's already an economic driver, right? But when you think about the outcomes that we were trying to accomplish, it really gets into much bigger picture for your entire community, right? The challenge for SCRT reached out to entire community engagement, financial security and sustainability, not just for one theater, but for all of the cultural entities that are here. Thinking about a consolidation of cultural assets, so that, as Harriet said, it's not just one person fighting another person over a piece of pie, but that you're growing the entire pie, or floating all of the boats together, and thinking about how you rise as a community. Thinking about the security and sustainability for Trinidad and economic resiliency for the region. So Trinidad is a leader. You are a leader not only in your region, but in your state. And the unique thing that I see here, and I will speak candidly, is the actual leadership of your city has turned over so many times that when you are leading, it is you that is leading. It is SCRT. And And it is the people, you know, from the college, it is the people who are showing up, who are leading. Because the actual person selected to lead your city keeps on changing, right? So you have this grassroots, community-led drive to succeed. And you are doing it, sometimes despite the fact that that leadership is there or not there, right? Because sometimes it's when they're there that you do it, and sometimes it's when they're not. But I think that is one of the unique pieces of this model is we've never selected a nonprofit to be the primary. Normally we would select a public sector entity to be the challenge community leader. In Trinidad, your creative sector is the leader. And you're the ones who've been driving this thing for a really long time. So when I look at Harriet and how she is able to tell the story, that is what I hope for all of Trinidad. Okay, because I think that there are a number of things. So your creative leadership is the consistent piece. It is the strong piece in the community. And when I say creative industry, I definitely mean education as part of that. I think there are different sorts of trades that might not consider themselves creative all of the time, but I think they are creative. I think it is a part of this nonprofit and private sector leadership that is driving this community. And that's the authentic piece that is making this community move forward, despite a lot of setbacks that might be, sort of at that management level. And you are filling a need and a demand. So the way that you're driving is actually filling a need and demand. Now, as you look at the creative leadership, then how do you grow that? And thinking about that piece, I think, has been a big part of where we've been going. And it comes down to telling the story. And the story for each individual group, they're telling their story. But what we're not telling is the overall story of Trinidad. And the fact that anyone would question what the economic impact of creative industry in Trinidad is, the fact that that could ever come up at a city council meeting or in any sort of public forum blows my mind, right? Because all of the creative entrepreneurs and the different businesses and the fact that your funeral parlor does a cooking show, right? Like, there is no question that your competitive advantage and the authentic thing that you are offering that really drives is coming out of your creative sector. And that creative sector is broad and diverse. So telling that story is going to require people to work together and to do some research. So whether it be a grant to figure out, to bring in a consultant group to do the research, or whether it be everybody kind of putting together the different reports that they've done, finding a way to tell that story is your way to success. Because once you tell your story, it's going to eclipse everything else, right? Of course, your natural environment, your built environment are also important pieces, but in terms of that economic driver, you've got something very unique there. And then thinking about how you bring that collaboration together. I think that there is definitely, one of the things that we encounter a lot with the Challenge program is this idea between a scarcity mentality and an abundance mentality, right? And the scarcity mentality is, I've got to fight for each scrap of food that I have. And the abundance mentality is, the more the merrier. We're going to either rise together or we're going to fail together. So let's do this at big. Let's go big, let's go strong, let's take everything that we can. And I think we're moving towards getting to this abundance mentality just with the private sector and the nonprofits here. But I think a lot of that is coming from the leadership of SCRT of Harriet. When I come here and I see meetings, I see a much more diverse group of people coming to the meeting than a lot of the other meetings that I might attend here, where it's sort of like people in a silo, people in a bubble, and I think that there are so many resources coming in. If we can figure out how to make those resources benefit all of you as a collective, we're all going to get a lot further than if one person sort of takes a piece and does their little obligation, puts the money in the bank, and goes home. So thinking about how we really build that collaboration is a lot of what we'd like to do today. The other thing, and Harriet mentioned an event, we have been doing these community activations with all of our different challenge communities where we go and we have all these different little bells and whistles, and we can light things up, and we can make it really pretty, and we can have fun games, and we can have fun activities, and it's great. But when we looked at Trinidad, we said to ourselves, it's not enough. The things that might work in other places are just not enough because you're already doing so much. You are already here, so if we bring you here, that's just not going to be good enough. So what we wanted to do today was to do some of this interactive games and some of the talk to kind of show you where we're going and really think about how in 2020 we can plan something collaborative that's going to help each of the different groups tell their story by bringing it out onto the streets, getting people out of their bubbles, out of their buildings, onto the street, showcasing it. And it's not necessarily about bringing other people to town. It's about bringing your locals out and helping them understand how they can invest right here with their time, with their money, with their love, with their talents, all of that. So I am really proud to invite my partner, Brian Corrigan. He's going to change out this slide, and he's going to talk about the experience economy. Now, as we go into this, I just want to let you all know that Brian and I met while on a party bus planned by Dana Crawford to come to Trinidad. So I had worked in Trinidad for a long time. Brian primarily worked in the urban center. He's a Denver boy. I mean, he's actually a Montana boy, but he was working in Denver. And we met on this party bus to Trinidad. So this is like the place where we met. And from Trinidad, we have like blossomed and gone all over the state and shared the love that we found here with the rest of the state. So I'm excited to share Brian with you. And I will be assisting with the presentation. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm so excited to be here. Trinidad is definitely one of my favorite places in Colorado. And I have to say, I've been coming to Colorado since I've been about this tall. My sister lives up in Steamboat. And so when I was introduced into Southern Colorado, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the coolest part of the state. I can't even believe I've never been here before. So thank you for having me back. We're going to do something really fun to start off because my middle name is Fun, so just let everyone know. So Catherine is passing out balloons, so please grab one from her. And what we're going to do with this activity is I'm going to have you blow up the balloons, and then once you blow them up, I'll tell you what to do next. Suspense. Really, I just like everyone to turn everything into a party, so that's why I bring the balloons with me.
Grab it. Wait, you left off on grab it.
Yep, okay. So grab it, inflate it. Everyone please look like this cute little emoji here. Make sure your lips are puckered out. Okay, yep, tie it up.
We need another slide.
Yeah, tie it up. Yeah. And then what I want you to do is I want you to actually just write what your favorite Trinidad experience is. What's your favorite experience here in Trinidad?
Write it on the balloon.
Yep, ride it on the balloon.
Go ahead.
And we might have to share markers. We're going to collaborate and share markers.
There's a scarcity of markers.
No, there's an abundance.
There's abundance of markers.
An abundance of sharing.
Yeah. Oh, you're all right.
I can never tie them either. All right, do we have all of our experiences written? Almost.
Anyone else need a Sharpie?
Everyone got their stuff on there? Okay, well now here comes the really fun part. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to toss it to someone else, and then once you catch it, I want you just to start screaming out what someone wrote on the balloon. All right, ready? Toss it, go. All right, what do we got?
Weather.
Woo! Okay.
Sitting on the rooftop deck listening to the church bell.
Yes.
Trinidad.
Trinidadio.
Art family.
What's that? I heard Trinidad. Or I heard Arcade. And then what was the other one?
Yes, JC Sports.
Okay.
Music with friends.
Ooh.
Weather.
Weather. Nice.
Snow day.
Snow days. Yes. Nice and cuddly. Did we say them all?
To be in the river.
Tubing in the river.
The people, did you do that?
Oh, the people. Yes.
Seeing, doing, adult level creativity, and knowing you're free.
Awesome.
Low humidity.
I can get behind that one. Okay, awesome. Did we cover them all? All right, I say toss them up one more time just for fun. It's a party. It's a snow day party. Awesome. All right, so we're here to talk about the experience economy, and I think this is, again, it's really, let's set the base level for really, there's a market force for all of this. And it's interesting because this was predicted 25 years ago. In 1996, a Danish researcher from the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies actually said that people will buy mostly stories, legends, emotion, and lifestyle. Pretty crazy, right? So that gets us into what Harriet said earlier, that 74% of Americans prioritize experiences over things and stuff. It's a huge market demand right there, right? So going back to this idea of abundance, there's a huge abundance in the market. People want to buy this stuff. This is pretty fun because I think when I think of the experience economy, it goes back into this idea of bankable moments, but it's also really about the monetization of emotion. So I used to teach design at the Corcoran College of Art and Design in Washington, D.C. And I was given artists pretty much, and I was supposed to teach a color theory class. I am not a painter. I do not know how to mix paints. So when I had to teach this class, I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to do something a little more special so these kids don't think I'm a phony. So anyway, I actually would pair my color theory with the economics of emotion, or emotionomics, to really kind of start to relate how economics and emotion really kind of tied into color theory. Interesting enough, when you start to, again, mix colors, primaries into secondaries and then tertiaries, emotions work the same exact way. So we have our 5 basic emotions right here: happiness, surprise, anger, disgust, and sadness. And when they start mixing together, you get this secondary set of emotions. It's interesting because if you look over here at surprise and fear, awe and alarm, that kind of gets into this idea of like excitement and fear, right? And sometimes when we're fearful, like fear and excitement are the same emotional kind of feeling in your body, it's just how you frame it. So they always kind of say this for like public speaking. They say, it's how you frame it. You're just actually really excited to be on stage, not really fearful to be on stage. So I think it's, again, a very interesting chart right here when you start to kind of think about this idea of the experience economy and how you start to really monetize emotion. Anyone know what this is? What? Casa Bonita. I mean, again, going back to just really kind of like, this stuff has been around for a really long time, right? And I think the interesting thing about this is, what's the one thing that we always talk about that's horrible?
The food.
Exactly. So I think it's like funny because we don't have to be the best in everything, right? I think that there's just kind of this idea out there that we have to totally kill it in every single category. But I wonder, would Casa Bonita still be around if their food was good? What do you think? Probably not, because that's what everyone talks about. I mean, I talk about how their guacamole is fluorescent green. It totally looks like it would glow in the dark, and I'm pretty sure it does. So again, I think it's just really kind of thinking about this emotional charge, and there's definitely an emotional relationship to this idea that the food is so crappy that you just have to go there to experience it because this is this crazy place, right? So again, it's kind of like really thinking about our own recipes and what are those certain kind of flavors that we're putting together to really create these experiences. They're all totally rooted in emotion and feeling. And I also kind of think once you start to think about really kind of just where we're at in society in terms of technology and artificial intelligence and all of these other kind of market forces, people are dying for human-to-human connection. And so that's where this idea of experience design and emotional design really start to become really powerful. And that's all rooted in the creative sector because emotion is really like the vehicle for emotion is stories. How about this one? It's your neighbor down south, Santa Fe. Meow Wolf, yes. So everyone here has heard of Meow Wolf, right? I think the interesting thing about Meow Wolf is, again, it's like they are kind of becoming this new kind of poster kids for the experience economy. And last I heard that their last round of fundraising, they raised $174 million. Yes, $174 million for art, right? For people to experience art. So they're going to be opening beyond Santa Fe, Denver, Las Vegas, Washington, D.C., and then they're going to be opening a hotel in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, I think this going back to this idea of a scarcity mentality and thinking, oh, poor artists, can we please have some money? No, the conversation is we are very powerful, and we're so powerful that we can raise $174 million for people to experience the spaces that we are putting together and the experiences that we're creating. This is super fun. This is the world's first glow-in-the-dark ramen shop. It's called Nakamura, and it was born out of this idea that a Japanese artist felt like her ancestry was being erased. And so she wanted to make sure that her stories were told. And so they did it through a traveling glow-in-the-dark ramen shop. And so right here, they built the shop in a shipping container. That's how big it is. And so I think that there's about maybe 5 or 6 people who can dine at a time. People pay $85 for that bowl of glow-in-the-dark ramen right there, just to experience this. But the experience is super cool. And I think it also gets into this idea of collaboration of what can we do together that we can't do by ourselves. So if you think about the collaboration here, the wait staff is actually spirits that are all based in Japanese folklore. And so you have theater, you have chefs, you have artists, you have all of these different people working across disciplines to create these experiences where then people will pay $85 for this little bowl of ramen. Pretty crazy, right? But also very inspiring. Like, this is our time to do really cool stuff. This is the inside of it right here. The other fun piece about this is going back to the storytelling, so this travels. It was launched in Atlanta, and then it went to Charlotte, and then it went to LA. When it hit LA, this shop was in the news globally for 1 month. It was pretty much covered by every trend agency as this is the future of food. The funny thing about the ramen though, I will say, that glow-in-the-dark ramen is all organic. So it doesn't have any weird stuff in it. It's all totally natural. But it goes back to this idea of storytelling and bringing attention to these concepts. But the bigger story is that the innovation and the collaboration and the fun is happening in these places, and that's going to be attracting the kind of energy and the type of investment that you want in your place. And that's the important piece right there. And also making money is pretty important. This is pretty fun too. This, instead of this mall right here, instead of doing twinkle lights during the holiday, they were like, we want something that's a little bit more adult-based. So this concept was put together by a group called Bumpus and Par. They are, I would say, leaders in this idea that really is the intersection of art and food. And so they put together a mermaid bar in the mall that would attract adults so they could come and do their shopping there. So you get in this fun little boat right here, and then you go into this magical world with all of these mermaids selling you drinks. I'm like, who doesn't want to have a cocktail with those mermaids lounging around, right? Super fun. But again, it starts to show the collaborative nature of even in this kind of level, this instance of really the costume design and the makeup, and then the cocktails and the set design and all of the different things. I always say bigger isn't always better, smaller isn't always easier. And this is one of my favorite examples of how it's just small little things that really make a big difference. This is the Magic Castle Motel, not a hotel, a motel in Los Angeles that is rated the #2 place to stay on TripAdvisor. Their secret, this red phone right here, the magic phone that pretty much you can dial at any time, and you can have popsicles delivered poolside on a silver platter by this fancy guy right here. Right, popsicles don't cost really anything, really delivering them really doesn't either, but that magic, that imagination, that creativity is what keeps people coming back to a motel in Los Angeles, not a hotel. And think about how much money people spend on their spaces for their experiences to attract all of these customers in Los Angeles. And the #2 one is a motel with a red phone. That's magic. This is me. Over the holiday, I put together a fun menu that sold just experiences instead of, again, things or stuff. And it was really kind of this idea to think about how do we put these experiences together and places across the state and really kind of think about how do we get the circulation really kind of flowing to maybe places that people don't understand are super cool. And so of the experiences, we did them both in the urban setting and also in the rural setting. So one of the ones that we did in the urban setting was, this is the Meow Wolf Experience Tube. They call this analog social media. And so essentially you put your head in the tube and you talk to each other through the tube. And we turned it into a big pizza party. And is what we did to get people talking together. So we gave them topics. Everyone would put a topic that they wanted to talk about in a little bucket here. And then they would each pick one, and then they would have to talk about the intersection of those two topics. And I'm going to tell you, people got really creative, but it also built this very bonding experience because obviously when you're talking to each other through a tube, it's very bonding. Now, I would say eating the pizza with the tube, that was a little bit more complicated, but you know, the tubes just got a little greasy. This is another one where we collaborated with Chef Frank Bonanno, who owns and was really a pioneer of Denver's culinary scene, with the Museum of Nature and Science, and then also the Colorado Micro Ranch. The Colorado Micro Ranch actually raises insects as protein and is really pushing for people to think about this as an alternative. And they make things that I didn't even know existed, like cricket flour and mealworm flour. It's totally crazy. And you can like make noodles with that stuff, just like almond flour. You can bake with it, all the things. So we put together this dinner where we had people really bug it out. And it was a 5-course meal where it explored really the history of insects as protein, and the curator of insects from the Museum of Nature and Science really walked people through the history of it and brought them back into present day, where now they're eating bugs raised locally here in Colorado, and then brought into this culinary excellence with Chef Frank Bonanno. This one was my favorite. So we worked with the whole town of Paonia, and it's funny because I think as creatives, we know Paonia, but a lot of people still don't know Paonia. And what we did is we put together an experience that really kind of showed the whole town. It was called Planes, Tastings, and Automobiles. So as a buyer, you would get into Paonia, then they would give you a helicopter tour of the valley. You would land, they would pick you up with a vintage car, drive you to the vineyards, do wine tastings for the whole day, go back to your bed and breakfast, have a farm-to-table dinner, and then the next day, you could go to artist studios and learn how to paint or make jewelry, any of that kind of fun stuff. Or, my favorite, and this is like the awesome thing about small towns, you could go to the radio station and you could DJ on the air for 1 hour. I'm like, that's super cool to be able to have that kind of experience, and that's something that is totally really an advantage of being in a smaller place. Now, kind of getting back into more of this idea of like, how do we start to really kind of think about like taking advantage of this stuff, and how do we be really smart about taking advantage of this stuff? I think it gets into this idea that, again, in today's economy, we're more than just one thing. We're a hybrid. We are very fluid, and we don't have to be a yes or a no, a black or a white. We can go ahead and be that gradient, and we can be that rainbow of color. And so how do our spaces start to reflect that? Now, I think us being in a theater is pretty awesome, because that's really what theaters do, right? Theaters have this infrastructure that allow for lots of different things to happen and lots of different stories to be told. But what about some of the other spaces outside of theater? This right here is a cool kind of retail concept where they're starting to explore this idea of a transformer space, where you can go ahead and merchandise your product, but then it adapts to different types of uses and really different types of experiences that you can play host to. So maybe one day it turns into a big working session, and the other day it turns into some sort of presentation. but it starts to really get at, and I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, really how do we start to think about our spaces as this thing that really is very fluid and it transforms, and just like people, right? We're much different when we wake up in the morning versus when we go to bed at night, and that whole journey throughout our day. We change, and so really thinking about how our spaces adapt, just like how we adapt, I think is really crucial to thinking about how we totally maximize this idea of the experience economy.
Brian?
Yes.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Would you go back to the, one more slide back? That's, no.
Yeah. So
There.
it's that wall, and
Yeah.
then it can tip over and lay flat
Right
in their
here.
workspace, or it can slide up those beams there in the
And
bottom,
then-
so it's up above the people that are sitting there. So you can open up the space, you can have a display space, you can have a workspace. And then if you look over here on the side, you're pulling down sort of like a Murphy bed over there.
But then right here, it also doubles as like a place to put clothes, like a normal kind of retail shop. So like right here, it's like a normal retail shop where you can shop the clothes, but then you kind of take this thing off, and then that pulls down into a working desk.
The reason I want to pause here is that we as a community have the responsibility to decide what happens in the space we create common area. And there's been an advisory committee, and they're looking financially at this type of flexible use that can be so many different things. So I just wanted
Yeah.
everybody to kind of see that, not that obviously, because that's somebody else's vision, but that type of thing. It's time to start coming up with ideas in that category. Okay?
Yeah, well, and I'll say this, if you really want to get geeky with this type of work, where it really kind of started is in Tokyo, because the living spaces are so tiny there that they really had to start thinking very strategically about how they designed their living spaces. So there's all of these like transformer apartments where it's like, again, it's kind of like, Murphy bed times a billion, right? Where it's thinking about how your space just doubles as multiple different things and makes it comfortable for what you need it to be at that moment. So again, it's like doing more with less, and I would just say it's really maximizing your return on investment for that square footage. And that's where it gets into this really kind of, I think, interesting, the business side of the experience economy. So I have worked with the Colorado Rockies, and I'm gonna say, as an artist, when I started working with the Colorado Rockies, I was just like, let's just make it cool. And they're like, but they're like, let's also like make it really kind of work and make money. And so I would say the one thing that I think about their particular space, the stadium, they maximize their ROI per square footage on that stadium where it is making money the whole time. And I think it gets into this idea that I have really been thinking about, where we can't just design our things to be sustainable, because that's just making it. That's this. Like, we're always going to be spinning our wheel. We have to design our companies, our businesses to be thriving, because that's where you hit enough of this turn where you're not wearing yourself out, right? And so I think we need to look to the people like sports who have been working in the experience economy for a while, who make a lot of money, to think about what can we borrow from them that's going to fit our model and make it authentically ours. This right here, and I love the cotton candy thing that you showed, Harriet. This is kind of along the same lines. This bakery right here in Denver, it's been around, I've been in Denver for 10 years. It's been around for at least 10 years. I've never seen anyone in it. They're usually just the bakery for City O City, and that's kind of where their baked goods go, but I never really saw anyone in this storefront. They just did this redesign with a mural on the front with this like fun little monster guy, right? And honestly, this whole summer, there has been a line around the block for the same exact product. They haven't changed their product one bit. But all of a sudden, this brought new attention to this bakery, and now everyone has to go and eat the same product, right? So I think it starts to show this really kind of fun idea where we start to get into this idea of what's the relationship between our private spaces and our public spaces, and how is the entrance a portal and the go-between these two spaces. Now right here, it's kind of like what I say is the story is, this monster eats you just like you're going to eat this delicious cupcake right here that they've been cooking for 10 years, right? This is the kind of thing where it starts to blend public art with the public sector and the private sector, and it starts to make really business sense. And again, this bakery is a really good example of that because they didn't change any of their product offering. It also then gets into this idea of, as you guys know, just public space enhancements and the role of public art in this. Now, I think like this piece I love just because of really kind of the accessibility of it. It's really just Mylar strips attached to some sort of netting that allows for the wind to animate it. But it really starts to get into this bigger picture of what can we do together that we can't do by ourselves. And really kind of thinking, it's not just making your own business experience or your own company experience really awesome, but really kind of thinking about the district experience or the neighborhood experience or the town experience, and really thinking about how you bring all of those things together. But it gets a little bit more interesting because how do you start to monetize this stuff? How do you really start to, again, move beyond sustainability and move into thriving? Now, I love this because it shows really kind of, again, the public art aspect of this, but where the next level of it is that they opened up a shop where you could buy this stuff, right? And so it gets into this idea of, you go to the Eiffel Tower, you love the experience, and then you go buy a little trinket, that's the Eiffel Tower. This is just really kind of the updated version that's a lot more slick, a lot more artistic, and again, a little bit more contemporary. But how do we start to really kind of think about how we're activating our public spaces in ways where we can monetize that? I think that's been the challenge because, you know, how do you monetize something that's free? Well, how then do you kind of bring it back into this kind of private space that allows for a different kind of consumption? And again, I think it just goes back into once you have these great experiences, you want to buy the souvenir. And it also then gets into this idea of perception, and this is where I bring this one up, is really kind of thinking about how can really arts and culture start to really think about enhancing the public spaces. Now, I bring this up, even though that this isn't a super artistic thing, it's a very important thing. So again, when we start to think about how we get people to walk to places, a lot of people, their perception, their emotion is, oh, that's too far, I can't do it. Well, these signs start to demystify really how far something is to try to get people to just go there, right? And to change their behavior, because that's what we're up against. We're up against people's really just their behavior and their well-worn path. So how do we put signs out that really get people to be like, oh, I'm not going to go down the same path I always go down. I'm going to turn here, and I'm going to explore, and I'm going to turn the fearfulness of, oh, I don't know what's down there, into fun, like, oh, wow, this is going to be an adventure, right? And that's what arts and culture can do, is we can make it really fun for people to try new things so they're not fearful of new things. And then I bring up this parking garage because we all know how much fun parking is, right? Who here loves parking? And I don't think it really has to just, this lesson has to be super attached to a parking structure. It's about all parking. How many times do we hear that we need to have parking outside of our store? Right? It's more, well, is that the case, or is just parking really something that needs to be redesigned in general just to make it more fun? So maybe walking to the store is an adventure, right? And that is where you flip the fear into fun. Now, that parking garage is not only super cool on the outside, but look how fun it is on the inside. You got slides, you got a place to run around a track, you got all of the different things. Now, I bring this up too because as it goes into experience design, it's interesting because we don't remember the whole thing. What we do remember is the last thing that we experienced. That's the first thing that we remember. The second thing that we remember is the beginning. So really, the two most important parts are where you end and where you begin. Now, how many times when you think about all of our experiences, they may end with parking, right? And so again, it's not just thinking about really our own personal experiences in our businesses or our theaters or wherever. It's really about this whole experience of either the downtown or the whole town. And that's where it gets into this idea of collaboration and thinking about how do we all work together to enhance everyone's experience. And then also, how do we work together to bring the cool stuff out onto the street so people don't even notice that they may have to walk a little further or that they may have this other little thing that they used to complain about. It's about really making it so fun that people want to do it. So just to demonstrate my theory there, well, I should say the research, I'm going to leave you with this really cute picture of a puppy. So when you remember this presentation, you'll just remember how cute that puppy was. And that's what I got.
All right. Now we can definitely do question and answer, but before we go, I just want to add one thing. So when Brian had that sign that said 20 minutes to live music and dancing, another note is that was a simple cardboard sign posted up there, right? So thinking about things that you can put up in a temporary fashion to see how people react. Like, remember, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and this is something that's an ongoing process that you really are going to do forever, right? This is your community, and it's been a million things, and it will be a million more. So it's not like you lose anything from the past, and it's not like you should be afraid to try something new. But thinking about simple testing, things that you can do to have fun, and to try out ideas, and to make your local population feel included and free to be, free to try, free to collaborate, free to share, right? So just keep that in mind as we go through our next activities. Nothing is off limits, and nothing is a bad idea. Yes?
Yes.
Now, we wanted to do, okay, so we have two fun things. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you guys have questions for Brian and stuff?
Okay.
Okay, so.
And thank you, because I think you opened so many doors for us that it's tremendous.
Well, that's what I like to do. Well, and I think, like Catherine said, you guys have so much going on down here that, like, giving this presentation here, like, I know you can bring it into this, and it's really exciting to be down here. So
Of all the communities in Colorado, you can surpass,
yeah.
right? Like, you are already doing so much that you can go beyond these things. So we have utmost respect.
Yes.
Okay, so we want to do this one. So can we do, just because we're in theater seating, it'd be nice if we could do, I think we have 12 people, one person stepped out, but can we aim for 3 groups of 4?
And so we can certainly turn chairs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. If we could just be able to have smaller groups for this part.
So okay, get in your groups and then I'll explain it.
4?
Yep. Tom, me?
I'll join you up here.
No. There's our 4. Boys to girls.
So here's one for you guys. There you go. One for you.
Twister.
Yes.
Is that a pizza?